We're assembled today as it being June 1st, the start of hurricane season, but I would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge some of the events that have occurred in our country over the last week. It's hard to address the public without acknowledging some of these terrible things that have happened to our country, starting with the senseless and horrific death of Mr. George Floyd. I've watched the 5.5-minute video. It is senseless. It is heartbreaking. It is unnecessary. It's frankly horrific. And the shame of it is the conversation right now in our country should be geared upon how this would never happen again. The experts weighing in, the people weighing in, why did this happen? How do we prevent this? And of course, it's been derailed with violence, and it's been derailed with lawlessness, and it's been derailed, frankly, with selfish activity, far and further away from what happened to Mr. George Floyd, and we don't want anyone having his death be in vain. So hopefully the conversation can get back to where it needs to be in this country, and we can get back to peace and get back to the real issue at hand as to how to make sure this never happens again. So with that, I just wanted to say that this is some of the scenes, and the violence is not the America I recognize. It's not the America I'm proud to be. But we can do better than that, and we need to focus all of our efforts on making sure an incident like Mr. George Floyd never happens again. So I just wanted to say that. But today, we are here, of course, for June 1st, which is the start of the hurricane season. We're here at the Jefferson Parish Emergency Operations Center in Gretna, and we're here to provide you some very critical information on the preparations and on the readiness that Jefferson Parish has as we enter this year's hurricane season. Certainly this year is more complicated by the fact that we're dealing with COVID. We still have COVID in our community. We're still getting positive cases. We've plateaued at a lower level, but it is still here. So I'm honored to be here with many of our partners, many of our other elected officials, and I'll start with our council. Our chairman, Ricky Temple's here. He will address you on behalf of the council later. Councilman at large for Division B, Scott Walker. Our councilman representing District 2, Dino Bonanno. Councilman for District 3 is here, Byron Lee. Councilman for District 4, Dominic Impastato. Councilwoman for District 5, Councilwoman Jennifer Van Branken, along with the mayors of Gretna, Mayor Belinda Constant, our mayor of Harahan, Tim Baudier, as well as our many of our fire chiefs, and I'll get to it, but we also have our Director of Emergency Management, Mr. Joe Valiente, our Sheriff, Joseph Lapinto, our Director of Public Works, Mark Drews, from Entergy, Patrick Hamby, the Chief of our East Bank Consolidated Fire Department, Chief Dave Tibbetts, as well as the Director of our West Bank Fire Services, Brian Adams, along with several chiefs from the West Bank, Chief Gary Gerard from Bridge City, Chief Don Robertson from Marrero Harvey, Chief Chuck Whitmer from Tarrytown, Chief Administrative Officer for the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority East, Mr. Derek Bays. We have the Executive Staff Regional Director of Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority West, John Monson, accompanied by his Board President, Mr. Scott Burke. Our GoStep Region 1 Coordinator, Mr. Norman Pineda. Our Emergency Manager for the U.S. Corps of Engineers in New Orleans, Heath Jones. Louisiana Public Service Commissioner, Mr. Eric Scrimetta, as well as Sherry, who has been part of our team at all these press conferences from the Deaf Action League. So with that, we'll get going, and many of these people will address you later regarding the preparations their agencies are individually taking for this storm season. So today, as I said, marks June 1st. It's the start of hurricane season. We've already had 2 tropical named storms already. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, predicts, unfortunately, that this season is going to be a busy season. There's a 60% chance of this being an above normal season of activity, a 30% chance of this being a normal season, and a 10% chance of this being a below normal season. So an average hurricane season produces 12 named storms, with 3 major hurricanes being a category 3, 4, or 5 with winds of 100 miles per hour or greater. So if the average is 12 named storms and 3 major hurricanes, they're predicting this season to be 13 named storms with 3 to 6 major hurricanes. So again, a 60% chance this year being an above normal season. Now is the time to be vigilant. Now is the time to prepare, especially, as I mentioned, we are in the midst of COVID. This virus is still being transmitted in our community. It takes a whole additional layer of preparedness to make sure that we're evacuating and doing the things we need to be doing very safely. Planning is going to be different. We have to give ourselves more time. It may take longer than usual to restore power and water after an event like this. So again, now is the time for us to be prepared. We want to remind everyone at your family level, at a personal level, get your go kit with your personal items together. Now is the time, the water, the food, the important documents, the extra clothes. This year is going to be different. Don't forget the COVID items that you need to have on stock, have ready to evacuate with if that's necessary, your hand sanitizers, your masks, your face coverings, soap. But again, get these things in order now, starting in June. Get your medical prescriptions filled. There's no reason not to have a full supply of that to take you through the season. Get your car in working order. Get some cash. Have your evacuation plan ready from your family. Know how you're going to evacuate your pets, which is a member of your family. Check in with your neighbors, with your elderly family members. Understand what plan they have. Do they need any help? Go ahead and put those documents that you store at home in a plastic bag, your birth certificate, your social security documents, your insurance policies, or have online access to them. Now's the time to go save them in a PDF form. Put it on an external drive. You have that ready to go with you. We want to remind everybody to stay informed during a storm. You need to text JP Alert, JPALERT, to 888-777 to get very timely updates. We just released last week for Spanish-speaking citizens. This is very critical. This is very important. We want to try to get as many people enrolled as possible. The same number, 888-777. Text JP Noticias to that number, JP Noticias, to 888-777 for all of our Spanish-speaking citizens, so you can be up to date on the latest weather events and what we need to do to prepare. And I also want to take the time before I introduce our next speaker, who will be Mr. Joe Valiente, to remind everyone that COVID testing is still going on. So I want to use this time. Woodmere is today, where we've set up an event at Woodmere June 1st through June 3rd. I heard this morning there was nobody there, so it's free testing at Woodmere. Please go there. As every day except for Sundays now, we're testing at Ilario Center. So there's free testing available in the community. Fortunately, we have tested in Jefferson Parish over 47,000 people. That is a critical element to our fight against COVID from before, and as we get into the next phases, and again, the governor will announce today what that looks like. But 47,000, and I want to also Joe and his staff, Recreation, General Services, our police departments, for standing up those sites, and they're so good at standing up community sites for a day or two and breaking them down and moving somewhere else, and along with our partners, LCMC and Oshner, for helping us do that. So again, before I pass it on and we get back to hurricane, I want to remind everyone that I'm here and I have the microphone. The census is very critical. We're only at a little over 60% filled on the census. We need to do better than that as a parish. We can see now more than ever our funding formulas, the CARES Act relief that we're getting, all the relief that we're getting from the federal government right now that we need so desperately is based on population formulas. We're going to shortchange ourselves if everybody is not counted in Jefferson Parish who resides here. So please, please take the time, online, telephone, or via mail, to get that census filled out and be counted. Okay, so with that, I'm going to call up our Director of Emergency Management, Mr. Joe Valiente, and you're going to have a lot of people coming up next to give you their latest on the preparation. So first up, Mr. Joe Valiente.
Thank you, Madam President, and good morning, everyone. I just want to mention a few of the names. I won't go through my entire list at the risk of repeating ourselves, but I want to mention for the United States Army Corps of Engineers, Colonel Stephen Murphy. He's doing a great job for us at GOSEP. Norman Pineda was mentioned, but we've got James Wascom, Chris Gilbo, Casey Tingle, and Melton Gaspar are critical components to moving information back and forth and acquiring resources from the state. Entergy, Melanie Stewart, Patrick Harvey, and Joni Patel are our go-to people, and when we have an issue in the EOC, they always come through with us every time. Our regional partners, which would be Colin Arnold, Patrick Harvey, and John Raham. And I will have to mention again I will repeat this group. The West Bank Fire Services under Brian Adams and the chiefs that were mentioned do a phenomenal job for us on the West Bank. They carry a tremendous amount of water for us, and they're always ready to volunteer for any issue that we have. And of course, East Bank Consolidated with Chief Dave Tibbetts. I just want to, again, thank Sheriff LaPinto, Chief Deputy John Fitzpatrick, Chief Robert Woods, Greg Lanero, the Captain of the Traffic Division. These are the people that we go to when we have to set up drive-through test sites, when we need emergency traffic control, during an emergency. These are the people that we look to. And our EMS partners in Gretna, East, West Jefferson, West Wego, and the Louisiana National Guard 2nd Battalion, 156 Infantry, Colonel Scott Desamore and Major Larry Toops have done a phenomenal job with us on COVID. But the great news is that they're going to remain with us during a hurricane. So they will be our commanders and boots on the ground. We've been able to develop an incredible relationship with them and some great bonds. So it's always good to have a personal relationship with your stakeholders and partners. So as you know, the National Weather Service has deemed Jefferson Parish as a storm-ready community. One of the things that it means is that our emergency coordinators understand the verbiage and understand the nature of the advisories, warnings, and watches that are put out by the National Weather Service. Quickly, the advisories are information. They're put out every 6 hours, and they discuss any changes in status, and also they provide updated information. Within those advisories, we have watches and we have warnings, and the watches tell us they're issued 48 hours in advance, and they tell us that prepare, possibly prepare. There's a possibility you may be in harm's way with tropical force winds within 48 hours. The next level is the warning, which is set out at 36 hours, which means that the likelihood is much greater that we will see those hazards and the impacts will be more severe. So understand that we have advisories, watches, and warnings. Watches, keep an eye on it, be prepared. There's a possibility. Warnings, it's imminent. The impacts are imminent. We've set up numerous weather stations throughout the entire parish, which gives us real-time electronic information. Then we know what's going on in every sector of the parish, including Lafitte and Grand Isle. We also plan to install some hurricane cameras, 2 in Grand Isle, 1 in Lafitte, which we will be able to have real-time video surveillance as to what the flooding looks like. So that we think is going to be a big asset for our leaders in the emergency operations centers to make better and more timely decisions. The next thing I want to talk about is the COVID-19 protocols, which are important. And the state has been working very closely with us on this for the last 10 weeks. They were aware of it. They knew that it was going to be an issue for hurricane season. And I feel extremely confident that we have it covered to the best of our ability. And we're going to provide the maximum amount of safety as it relates to COVID-19 to evacuees for people or citizens that need to be evacuated. So for the public-assisted evacuation, what we plan to do is everyone that arrives will get their temperature taken. They will be given a PPE mask, and if they are asymptomatic, they will be put in one group. If they are symptomatic, they will be segregated in a separate group. We will not break up families, and the state will decide how they will be transported and to what facilities they will be transported. There will be COVID-19 compliant facilities. And of course, at these shelters in Alexandria and in Shreveport area, the shelters will be COVID-19 compliant. So instead of the standard 30 square foot per person, it'll be 45 or maybe 50 square feet. And they'll have additional EMS to monitor anyone that may in fact be symptomatic. In the Emergency Operations Center, we think we have a really good battle plan. We're going to put plexiglass dividers between each ESF station, which is emergency support function, and there will be some protection there horizontally. We will install 4 air purifiers that are ultraviolet, and so they will circulate the air in the room 10 times, so that will help sterilize the air of any contaminants or contagions that are in the air. And the coordinators will be supplied with gloves and N95 masks, and they will be required to clean their stations 3 times in a 12-hour shift. So we think those 3 precautions are going to go a long way at keeping our emergency coordinators that have to be confined in a tight space. That's going to give them the maximum amount of safety and decrease the possibility that something will get transmitted. So I want to talk about evacuations now, very quickly. Every hurricane is different, so don't make the mistake of saying, well, this one was like Katrina, this one was like Harvey. Always realize that every single hurricane has its own signature, has its own issues. It might be storm surge, it might be deep land inundation, it might be winds, it might spawn a lot of tornadoes. There are a lot of variables here, and they're all random. The National Weather Service can give us good predictions based on probabilities and likelihoods, but there's always a level of uncertainty that we have to keep in mind with each individual storm. So with that, prepare your evacuation now and don't wait till the last moment. It's evacuating at the last moment is a very dangerous time to do it. Last-minute evacuees can expect flash flooding, fallen trees, utility poles that will block their escape routes. Once you're trapped on the open road in the middle of a high-level storm, you're stuck there because we cannot rescue you until the winds go below 50 miles an hour. So don't put your family and your pets in harm's way and wait till the last minute to evacuate. I cannot stress that enough. And let me say this, if you take away anything, sheltering in place for a category 3, 4, or 5 is never a good option for your family and pets. Next, I want you to prepare your evacuation kit. Start today. We have a lot of information, a tremendous amount of information about that, for that, on our website, www.jeffparish.net. Go to the emergency management tag and then look for hurricane preparations. We have a tremendous amount of information there for you. But some of the critical points that I want you to take home and drive home is always identify 2 evacuation routes and 2 destinations. Bring at least 2 bottles, 16 ounces bottles of water for each person. Remember to bring a phone charger because this is how everyone communicates now, and it's electronic and it requires electricity, so you have to be able to charge that phone in order to stay in tune. Bring at least a supply of 1 week's of prescription medication and non-prescription medication. We all take non-prescription medication, but those items make our life a lot easier on a day-to-day basis. Always bring your pets again on the evacuation. Bring some light snacks for everyone in the car and the pets. This year, you have to add PPE to your list. So if you're evacuating, make sure your kit contains mask, gloves, and hand sanitizer, because you don't know if you're going to be able to get those items at your destination. And I want to also point out that all those items that I just mentioned for a family of 4 and a couple of pets will fit in 2 backpacks. So we're not talking about having to set up a large container here. 2 backpacks will cover all this area. Remember, this is just to get you to your destination, and the PPE is to guarantee that that'll buy you a week's worth of time to be able to secure more of it. On that note, I'm good, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Joe. Next up, I'd like to call our partner, certainly in the hurricane season as well, Sheriff of Jefferson Parish, Joe Valiente.
Thank you, Madam President. Rest assured that Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office has a plan. We have a plan of action. We have adequate personnel to be able to operate any of our high water vehicles, our shallow water boats. What we ask right now, though, is the public has a plan. That plan starts now at the beginning of a hurricane season, not when a hurricane actually comes. That plan is going to be different for each individual person. We understand the family dynamic of each family is different. Some are going to evacuate, some are not. If you're going to evacuate, evacuate early. Give us the time to be able to prepare for an incoming storm. If you're going to stay home, make sure you're prepared to stay home. Look, A hurricane doesn't end when it passes through. We have a lot of work to do afterwards. The people that do stay home, take that opportunity when the storm passes to clean up your front yard. Take the opportunity to clean up your neighbor's front yard, backyard, whatever the case may be. But don't drive around sightseeing. Our first responders are going to be out there clearing the road to make sure that the supplies that need to be delivered to our region will be able to get here. Riding around the sightsee, causing undue accidents that aren't needed, takes that work away from our first responders here to be able to get us back to the normal. So have your plan in place. Know what it's going to be, whether it's a small storm, whether it's a large storm, and whatever your situation is. Our coastal areas understand that they're different. They're different than our non-coastal areas. We understand that that is going to be different from individuals. We understand that we can't control every individual person, but they can do a big job in order to make sure they help us out, that we can survive as a community and come back quicker and better as always. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. You know, fighting a hurricane is so critical for our internal drainage systems, our levee system, so we certainly have speakers on that front. So with this administration, this is Mr. Mark Drews, who's our new Director of Public Works. So, Mr. Drews.
This hurricane season, the Department of Public Works is in excellent shape with regard to maintaining critical infrastructure during a storm and quickly responding to begin the restoration process for anything that is damaged, any infrastructure damaged as a result of the storm. Our Drainage Department has 17 safe houses spread across the parish on both East Bank and West Bank, located at all our major drainage pump stations, and they have automation capabilities to run the pumps from these sites. We have a total of 71 pump stations throughout the parish, and every one of them is either fully automated or can be run from one of these 17 safe houses. In addition, all our major drainage pump stations have backup generators in case power goes out, with a 5-day supply of fuel on site. Similar to that, we have our water treatment plants on the East Bank and West Bank. Both also have safe houses with automation capabilities and also have backup generators with a 5-day fuel supply. Our sewer is in the same shape. Our major sewer treatment plants on both banks of the parish also have backup generators with a 5-day fuel supply on site. In addition, our streets department has personnel along with our parkways department to have the proper equipment to quickly respond after a storm to clear streets and give us back access to critical infrastructure. We have our traffic division ready to assist with traffic control. And personnel-wise, we're ready to respond to the restoration process. We have numerous employees that have actually been through Katrina, Rita, Gustav, and Ike, and they're ready to respond quickly to begin the restoration process of critical infrastructure. And hopefully this won't happen, but if we do have an event the magnitude of Katrina, each of our departments has in place emergency contracts where we can quickly bring private companies in to assist us if we have the need where we have significant damage to our infrastructure. So Public Works is ready for this season, and hopefully it will be a very mild one like last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next up will be our Entergy Customer Service Manager, Mr. Patrick Hamby.
Thank you very much. I'm Patrick Hamby on behalf of Entergy Louisiana. So we all know we're going through some unique and challenging times, and we've been doing it the last couple of months or so. In those unique and challenging times, I want to assure you, Entergy is prepared to not only keep the lights on, but to restore power when needed. We have had, as I mentioned, plenty of practice during this time, going through both restoration efforts for the spring storm season that is really a dual threat. You have COVID-19 threat, you have a storm threat, and yet we've managed to safely restore power in those times of need. We continue to be prepared and plan to do that throughout the hurricane season, which, as everyone knows, starts today. We have an extensive emergency restoration plan, and we've enhanced it with COVID-19 measures. Those include social distancing, sanitation, disinfectant needs, and all of this is done to keep both our customers and our employees safe. We ask our customers to please also recognize these social distancing needs and keep your distance from our employees so that they can safely perform their tasks. With hurricane season starting today and being in the middle of a pandemic, it is more important than ever to have a plan for you and your family. Please plan safe. Go to EnergyStormCenter.com for more information on generator safety, preparations for your family, and so on and so forth. At Entergy, we always hope for the best and plan for the worst. Please stay safe and healthy, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamby. Some more members of our first responder agency. So next up, I'd like to call the chief of our East Bank Consolidated Fire Department, Chief Dave Tibbetts, as well as our director of our West Bank Fire Services, Chief Brian Adams.
Thank you, Madam President. I was just calculating, it's an honor to be here with the rest of the fire chiefs from the parish. We got a couple of 100 years of experience sitting here, and I say that, I think that's a compliment, hopefully, to them. The East Bank Consolidated Fire Department is standing ready. We are on our annual maintenance of our marine fleet, preparing our low water boats, shallow water boats, some of our Zodiacs that they're prepared if we need them. We hope we don't. The one thing I do want to reiterate to everyone out there that's been said by every speaker, please, please take a moment with yourself, your family, and your neighbors and have a plan. What will you do if this happens? And as also, it's not just when the storm hits, when it's gone, but it's the aftermath as well. So keep that in mind, and we're here to help.
Certainly, along with our internal drainage system, our levee protection system, our west closure complex is very important. So next up, we're going to have the Chief Administrative Officer of Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority East, Mr. Derek Bays.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm here to tell you today that the East Bank system is ready for this hurricane season. We have walked, driven, operated, and checked all 192 miles of levee and flood wall and all of our major structures. We are ready for this season, and in fact, we are currently closing the barge gate on the surge barrier in New Orleans East based on the potential for tropical weather this coming weekend. We would not be ready for this season without the partnership of the parish, our other local agencies, the state, and our federal partner, the Corps of Engineers. While we have been impacted by Corona internally, we're fortunate in that it happened initially during this crisis. We are ready and able to handle everything that comes our way, and we've taken appropriate protocols and measures to ensure that our people stay safe while we do everything to keep the general public safe. We cannot eliminate risk. It's important to note that. We'll do our part here for the storm surge system and with the high river, but I encourage everyone here to do your part as well. Personally, individually, listen to your elected officials, take all the precautions that the parish president and others have mentioned here today. Please keep yourself safe and help us to keep you safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bays.
We recently completed all of the levee lifts that began in 2016. All of the levees have now been brought up to the required heights. We now have the best hurricane protection system that West Jefferson has ever seen. The United States Army Corps of Engineers continues to armor the levees to provide an extra layer of resiliency against storm surge. Our staff has conducted regular inspections and exercised all of our floodgates and pump stations, including Bayou Signet, Harvey Canal Sector Gate, and the West Closure Complex. The system is ready to go. In the event of a hurricane, we will remain behind in our Emergency Operating Center to operate and monitor all activities. We will also coordinate all of our activities with the state through GOSEP and CPRA, as well as parish and local governments. At the same time, we encourage you to get an evacuation plan and pay attention to evacuation orders. For more information, please visit our website at www.slfpaw.org. Thank you.
Okay, next up, I'd like to invite our chairman of our council. You know, our council is the legislative side of this government, but certainly have been on the front line regarding the fight against coronavirus, and they're certainly on the front line when it comes to hurricane season as well. So representing our Jefferson Parish Council is our council chairman, Mr. Ricky Templin.
And thank you, Madam President, and thanks for each and every one of y'all being here this morning. I'd like to make sure I acknowledge and thank my council as well. We have Councilman Dino Bonanno, Councilman Dominic Impastato, Councilman Byron Lee, Councilman Scott Walker, as well as Councilwoman Jennifer Van Rankin, and Councilman Edwards has just called in. He couldn't make it with us, but he wanted to make sure everyone know that he's keeping abreast of what's taking place. We're going to try to keep this a little short. You know, during this pandemic, we're getting a lot of questions from our constituents if we're ready for hurricane season, and we're here to tell you we are ready. During the pandemic, the council, and working through the administration, had created 11 task force to try to guide Jefferson Parish through the pandemic and the issues that were taking place. We intend to continue that task force through hurricane season to make the efforts as far as economic development, tax situations, emergency response issues are addressed as quickly as possible. We have a couple of new tools in our chest to help protect the constituents and give us real-time information. We had passed a few months back to where we're instituting 6 new cameras throughout the parish, 4 on the Gulf Coast off of Grand Isle, and 2 that are mobile that can feed the parish and administration and the council real-time information during a hurricane or a storm. And that's, you know, one of those things we need. We need to know what's happening so we can adequately protect our constituents and citizens. As well as you heard today, we have over 71 pump stations that are active and running and ready to roll. We have 1 pump station down with backup services ready to go. As well as we carry, Jefferson Parish, over 15 emergency pumps that are always there for backup, so we have a redundant system. A lot of those pumps are deployed to our coastal areas, Grand Isle and Lafitte, and some of those are already being deployed as we speak, because today is the start of hurricane season. And once again, thank you very much, and Jefferson Parish is ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I've mentioned, we've had many elected officials, our council members here, our mayor's here, and representatives of all of our partner agencies. So with that, that's the end of the speakers that are lined up. But if we're happy to take any questions anybody has. Anything? No? Yes. Yeah, I don't have anything to say about that. I think the governor is scheduled to make those remarks. This is a question about whether or not we go to phase 2 at 2:30, Gretchen. I think the governor is scheduled to make that announcement at 2:30 today, and we'll certainly all be watching for that as well. Yes.
And then a question about animals, since a lot of animal shelters are near capacity or at capacity or the adoption's not happening as readily. Is there a backup plan in case of an evacuation people need to shelter their pets at?
Well, at the animal shelter, right now, just so you know, the question is about animal shelter. We're still in an emergency mode. We're not bringing the public in. We're going for appointments. As to the evacuation plan for our own animals, it would kind of be similar, of course, with keeping the COVID in mind. You want to take that, Joe, if you know more specifics?
Yes, we do work closely with the state in terms of being able to evacuate the animals and the overflow of animals. And so we work closely with LSART and the Department of Agriculture. And so we have a plan. As a matter of fact, I was actually reading their emergency procedures last night. And so, yes, we do have facilities, overflow facilities that have been identified throughout the state that we can get these animals that are in the shelters out of harm's way.
Any other questions? Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah, of course, that's the issue this year that is critical for us, is that because of social distancing, you just need more space. You need more space in every shelters. You need more space on the buses. So again, when we talk about the additional challenges this year for hurricane preparedness, the spacing issue is what it is. In addition to PPE, in addition to trying to move COVID positive patients and not separate them from their families, but not have them mixed with other people. So many, many challenges with regard to that, but certainly spacing is one of those things as well. Any other questions? I want to thank all of you for being here, very much appreciated, and look forward to working with you. Thank you.